Do you think that's the case? The fate of the economy, of the rand, of government bonds, all rest on the results here? Could they be that significant?
Absolutely. This is the most critical election for the ANC since 1994. For Ramaphosa, he needs a strong mandate, particularly to neutralize his opponents within the party, particularly those aligned to former President Jacob Zuma, who want to undermine his economic reforms. The market feels anything above 55% is good enough. Closer to 60 would be great. In our view, the Zuma faction is going to remain a significant threat and will probably curtail Ramaphosa's reform agenda, even if he gets as high as 60.
What do you see as the biggest beneficiaries of a Ramaphosa victory?
Well, overall economic recovery will be signaled. If we look at what's been happening in the South African economy the last 5-6 years, it's lagged global trajectories. And so we really are expecting a rally in the stock market, especially. Bonds will be more cautious. We've got the Moody's ratings decision probably in November, and that'll be the next big flag to look for in the markets. And I think Moody's will be happy with Ramaphosa getting above 55%. Ramaphosa will show a reform plan, not only for the economy as a whole, but particularly for Eskom, the state electricity utility, which is in a real crisis. And so those should all signal positive.
And so, if the extent to which the Zuma faction within the ANC holds back Ramaphosa is dictated by these results to some extent, in what ways is the Zuma faction going to hold back the reforms, do you think? What should we be alert to?
Yeah, so Ramaphosa is pushing an aggressive anti-corruption campaign. He's having these public hearings. It's putting into the public record evidence of what Zuma and his cronies were doing. However, many senior members of the Zuma faction remain in the African National Congress. They remain in cabinet. They'll probably remain in cabinet when Ramaphosa announces his new cabinet in a few weeks. We'll see some of them at SOEs, at Eskom and the like. And while he might have chopped off the head, it's still sprouting other appendages. And this beast is really going to be a tough one for Ramaphosa to slay. And it will take a few years, not a few months.
What are the biggest economic advantages South Africa has right now as we see commodities rally, with the exception of some of the most important ones that they produce? For example, gold has done nothing this year.
Yeah, we're skeptical of these reform efforts actually resulting in economic recovery precisely because of that. The mining sector in South Africa has always been key to growth. It plays a multiplier effect across the economy. If we look at the last economic boom, we also had a consumer boom, and government was spending liberally. Now government doesn't have money, consumers are over-indebted, and the mining sector is really struggling with new legislation and still some pending legislation which needs to be finalized. So we think after about 6 months, this recovery expectation will be muted.
I've got a chart here that shows how South Africa's economic growth slowed at the end of last year. If you had one priority, then you've mentioned Eskom and the fixing of that beleaguered business. If you had one economic priority for the government, what would it be?
Definitely Eskom. Eskom's a massive threat. Power supply is likely to remain intermittent over the winter months that are now coming. Eskom's expecting worst-case scenario 26 days of 1 to 2 hour power cuts. We're expecting more than that. That really is the biggest crisis.